the dog scene is probably the best in the movie, just in terms of tone and just suddenly becoming this horrific thing. Like that's
feels
cool.
like it belongs in a different movie.
Yeah, but it is short lived. As far as legitimate scenes go, I do think that the centrifuge scene is fucking awesome. It's a rare moment where Bond is completely terrified and at the mercy of somebody else. And then they even have like this horror movie-esque editing, you know, when he remembers his wrist gun, you know, where it's like suddenly cutting in these flashbacks, which we've never seen in a Bond movie. And it's not like it's profound, but
normally he would do some sort of joke or pun or something, but I think he gets out and he's like really shaking.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I'm like, I love Roger Moore. Like, that's one of those moments where it's like, Roger Moore is awesome. Yeah, and he's like shoving her away. He's like, shut up, you know.
I'm gonna die.
Well, and then to cap it all off, there is that not so subtle, really funny moment where wannabe Oddjob is like,
Yeah.
he's sad.
Spoiled again.
And then just continuing on Wannabe Oddjob, like how, for the purpose of comedy, I guess, basically, they fight in that glass warehouse with all like the $1 million glassware and shit, just so they can break every single piece.
Do you know what goes through my mind when I watch that scene, because I've worked in that industry, and just like the fact that the props people and the set deck people had to find that much candy glass that would be breakable, that wouldn't hurt you, in all those forms and shapes, and set that entire thing up. And the fact that maybe, I don't know if they had replicas or not, because I didn't even look into this, but the fact that they had all that stuff, it's just like gives me anxiety thinking about it, because of just how many takes they would have to do that.
Because they have that scene setting it up where it's like this singular piece is worth millions or whatever.
This exquisite bowl was fashioned about 1520, over 450 years ago. If it ever came on the market, it would certainly fetch a price in excess of 1 million American dollars. But if any of you are thinking of taking it,
even though you're like, it's not real, dummy, it's not real, it does feel real, to where you really do, you're constantly imagining the person walking in the next day and just being like, but what's odd though is that I think it is owned by Drax, so it is weird that
the henchman goes back. I'm like, well, I didn't get him, but I broke like $20 million of your glassware.
He's the worst employee of everybody. Like, no doubt, if Bond hadn't killed him, that motherfucker was going out the airlock.
I love how he dies though, where he pushes him off the clock and then he lands into the piano like head first, and it looks so cartoonish. And then I'll give this one to Charlie. What does he say, Charlie? What's he say, Charlie?
Yeah, for the first time ever, a Bond joke is a movie reference.
Play it again, son.
Okay, I mean, I get. I mean, it's obviously Casablanca. Play it again, Sam. It's I guess it's appropriate, but it's.
I didn't make the connection.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not even worth note, but you know, Bond could have said a million different things. And that's what always bugs me. Like, movie references bug me, especially in a franchise like this, where it's like, why don't you come up with something worthy of reference rather than referencing a movie? But this whole movie is a whole bunch of movie references.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that we're on movie 11, and that's, you know, as we keep talking about, franchises get goofier over time. They become self-aware. You just killed James Bond. You know, like, everybody knows who Bond is, but even though they shouldn't, because pop culture is aware of him. So Bond has this movie knowledge. I mean, even when he plays they cut to M, and M looks at the Minister of Defense, and they both recognize it for what it is, you know?
Fourth wall.
Exactly.
You know what it reminds me of, though, Charlie? It reminds me of, like, when they were making they made Scary Movie, and that was great, and then they made Epic Teen Movie, and that was pretty good. And then they started making, like, Disaster Movie and Epic Movie.
Yeah.
And, like, if you've ever seen those movies, which I tell you, don't go watch those movies. They're not very good.
No.
You know, if you've ever seen those movies, it's like, they don't even really follow any kind of like plot of, you know, let's spoof the epic movies, you know, like let's spoof Lord of the Rings. They don't even do that really. They go on these tangents of like, oh, what came out last year? Oh, all these movies. Okay, let's put those references in these movies. And that's kind of how it feels like in this movie, where they just got to a point where they're like, oh yeah, we gotta, get everybody to want to see this movie, which by the way, they did, because for the longest time, this was the highest grossing James Bond movie until GoldenEye.
Really. And I believe it. I again,
Yeah.
I do not hate this movie by any means.